Here today with Jack Stuzin. Jack, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's pretty cool to be back.
How you doing? How's school going?
It's going great. Junior at Yale now. History major.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, really couldn't complain. I think I'm glad with that decision I made. History major. A lot of guys will tend to go econ, but I kind of followed what I've always liked, which was history. So
Yeah, another guy in the humanities. I like to hear that.
Exactly.
Good. So you've got the longest. I forget how long these breaks are. You guys are here for what, another week, and then you go back?
Couple more days. So I go back on Saturday, but it's kind of interesting where depending on what your exam schedule is, like you could have an extra week, of break. I had some friends who finished their exams on like the 22nd. I think I got out of there on the 19th or something. But it's wild. Like 3 or 4 weeks at home. It's nice to spend time with family again, but I'm ready to go back.
I remember, at least it's been pretty warm here, but I remember coming home winter breaks and having to train for the run test. I don't know if you guys have a run test when you get back, but I was always trying to figure out how am I going to motivate myself to run out in the freezing cold and get in shape for the season.
Yeah, so we don't have a run test, but I agree. Like we've got a pretty regimented like training plan over break, but I like to work out in the mornings to just kind of not get it over with, but check that off for the day, and have some time to do other stuff for the rest of the day. But it's sometimes tough knowing I don't have anything to do today. There's not really any real reason for me to be rolling out of bed at 8:30. But it's good to get out and start getting stuff done early, because you could definitely fall into the routine of waking up at 12, working out, sit on the couches for the rest of the day and doing nothing. Which there are some days for something like that to be done, but it's nice to get in some sort of routine when you're at home.
Yeah, I mean, you feel good. You feel like you've done something. You can always take a nap if you don't have anything going on, but at least you check. So you've got the Make Your Bed book I see here to talk about today. That one accomplishment in the morning. I just feel like whenever I wake up past, at this point, like 9:30 on the weekend, even on the weekends, I feel kind of like a bum. Sometimes you need it, though.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think like there are times where I'll hit snooze a couple times, but you feel good when you get out of bed, that first alarm, start your day, hop in the shower, a cup of coffee, like you're ready to go.
Yeah. What's the off-season or winter training regiment like? Like, what are you doing? Are you coming up to Gilman to work out? I saw you out in the field with your lacrosse stick a couple days ago. What's the workout plan like?
Yeah, so it's kind of fine-tuning everything, getting ready for the season, which starts up, officially February 1st. So it's a lot of like movement and speed stuff. We're still lifting pretty heavy on some days, but it's really like taking all of the muscle that we've built from, the beginning of I guess June, like from the end of our season, after we kind of have a couple weeks to cool down after the season ends. Beginning of June, like we're going up until the start of this kind of period, right when exams are kind of starting, and it's just getting fast, and starting to build those like fast twitch muscles. So I'm up at Gilman, most days. It's been awesome to, see former teachers pop their heads in. But it's cool to, have a lot of guys from my class that are also, training for their seasons, like lifting together again. And it's been super fun to do that.
Yeah, it's great to have the facility. I mean, the facility's here when everyone's in school. You've pretty much got this place to yourself. It's kind of how I feel on the weekends living on campus. I come up to the weight room. No one's in there. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's awesome. We joke around, like Sam King and I were in there a couple of days ago, and they had 5th graders coming in, like teaching them how to do goblet squats. And I'm like, geez, I would be so much stronger if I was in 5th grade and, I knew how to do something like lift wise. We were the generation of the old weight room upstairs, and I went back up in there a couple of days ago to do a couple of things, and we didn't have the luxury that guys have now, so it's kind of like added incentive to start working out and start getting active, which I think is pretty cool.
There are a couple things in that old weight room that are missing. The new one's amazing. I love it, but there are a couple things in there that I think you have to. Is that still set up? I haven't checked in a while.
It is, yeah. Mr. Holmes let me in and like had it all to myself, and brought me back to the glory days, but it was cool. Yeah, I would agree. I think there's some machines that, might be missing from downstairs, but it can't be perfect.
The turf
turf's
is great.
huge. Yeah, the turf's awesome.
You ever use those sleds?
I haven't.
No.
But I can see like those would be great to train with. Yeah.
Is Yale Lacrosse, are you guys still doing the off-season res? And I don't want to, you don't have to spoil any of your secrets as a program, but I remember when I was in college, we found out that the Yale Lacrosse team had to send pictures of their meals to the nutrition staff to make sure you guys are eating the right things.
Yeah. So, part of that is still done. Yeah. It kind of really depends what, you need, I would say. If you're a guy who's at weight, has enough muscle, like you're fine. Keep doing what you're doing. A lot of the times, you'll come in freshman year and a little bit underweight. And like you kind of need those training wheels a little bit. So it's more for that, use where you'll, talk to the training staff about the types of foods that you need to be eating to, help gain weight, help replenish, muscle after you lift and stuff like that. So that's definitely still done. I would say now it's more, from the team where you're not sending your food into, the coaches, where you do some of that still, but it's more, we have a big group chat that we use, like, just kind of like to keep everybody accountable, which I would say is most of that.
Mm-hmm. How's the season looking? How is the team going to look this year? What are you thinking?
I think good. We've got pretty much everybody back from last season. It's funny to say, like, last year I would consider a down year. All things considered, we made the NCAA tournament, which is a huge accomplishment for a lot of teams out there. I think that kind of goes to show, we have our pretty high, standard for what our goals are, which I think is interesting because you'll never once hear anybody within our program talk about what those goals are. You just kind of know what they are. This year, I think we return a lot of great leadership. I think the gift of giving an extra year, like an extra year of leadership, an extra year of wisdom and age for a lot of guys is going to be crucial. And there's going to be a lot of veterans on the field, which, is awesome. And I think that's going to be pretty big for us. And I think the one thing with us is, like, our captain has been saying it all year. Like, it's not, the X's and O's. It's not how good we are at lacrosse. It's going to determine the outcome of the season. It's like between the ears. If we can overcome the biggest muscle in our body, the brain, like, we're going to be fine. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of been the struggle this year, and it's an uphill battle, and it's an everyday battle. Which I think if you can, come to terms with that and really try to hone in on that, like, you're going to be successful. So that's really what we're focusing on.
Brandau back, or is he gone?
He is, yeah.
He's back.
Yeah, he's back. I think there's a couple more years. I guess this might be the last year and next year of, the COVID, hangover with all the eligibility stuff. So I'm, so happy that he's back. And just having, another really, leadership-driven team with that class who, I'm lucky to, have 3 years with, or I guess 4 years, has been, great.
Yeah. Tell me about the coaching staff, Coach Shay, kind of his philosophy and maybe how he's evolved. So you have 2 more years, right?
I do.
So this year and next year.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, he's awesome.
I know guys love him.
He's really one of a kind, in my opinion. Getting recruited by a lot of these other coaches out there, and they're obviously great and a part of awesome programs. I just felt that he was very different in the recruiting process, where I understood that once you go to a school, like, you got to work for a spot, you got to work to play. At some of these other schools you go to, they're kind of like almost telling you you're gonna see time on the field, and I'm like, that's kind of crazy that you're making that promise, and I'm a junior in high school. Like, you have no idea what I'm gonna be like in 2 years. Coach Shay will never do that. Yeah. He's never gonna guarantee you anything. He'll tell you really funny stories about some of the Yale Lacrosse legends and some of the recruiting stories that they have, and they're all just very unique to him. He told a kid, he told me one time that that this kid, I guess, like snapped at his mom when they were in the office, like doing their initial meeting. And then they're touring around campus, and Coach Shay and this kid walk a couple paces up ahead of the kid and his parents, and he leans over to this kid and he goes, "So, if that's how you talk to your mom, how are you going to talk to me?"
Yeah, yeah.
Which I think, like, if you're trying to get a kid to come to your school, he's willing to. You could be a fantastic lacrosse player, but if you're not a good person, he's going to take a pass on you. Like, he wants a kid that's going to work his butt off, going to grind, and he'll develop you into a great lacrosse player.
It's really interesting to think about, and I'm talking with Mr. Molina, who's back at Gilman. I think he was here when you were here. He went to Yale Law School, and we're doing a assembly next week, basically about affirmative action, but really about what it takes to build a successful, whatever that means, community, team, school. And we were talking the other day about how building a team, it's not always about getting the best players. There's so many teams that have all of the best players on paper, but they don't actually win the championship in whatever sport or league they're in, because there's some other formula involved in creating culture and a good team. And I think I think what you just told me about Coach Shay and looking for some things about people's characters. I remember my dad played at Hopkins, and I did a visit to Hopkins and talked to Coach Petramala. And one thing that I'll never forget, he said to me, is like, "I noticed in your tape, after everyone scores in your recruiting highlight video or whatever, you're always going up to them. You're the first one there, giving them a high five." And I would never think that a coach would notice something like that, But those guys on the team that are pumped for their teammates, I mean, that's what it's all about.
Exactly. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So it's just to say that there's maybe more involved in a team than just skill.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like you kind of everybody goes to college. I want to be the best player on the team. That's that's not gonna happen. Not everybody can be the best player on the team. So I think you kind of fill into those roles, and he does an awesome job of kind of leading you there. And our team mantra is one: only need everybody. And I think like that holds true all the time. It holds true now. We've had a couple major players get injured this year, starters get injured. So it's like, who's the next guy up? That guy who was on the bench 3 weeks ago, who might not have thought that he was going to play.
Yeah.
Congratulations. You're a starting attackman now. You know what I mean? So only need everybody. Like, it rings true for playing. It rings true for we don't leave guys at home on like away trips. So I think like we'll have guys come in with the team, stay at the hotel with us. Like, only need everybody. You're not going to leave somebody behind just because they're not going to play.
Yeah, I like that. Let me ask you, a lot of guys at Gilman, schools like Gilman, they want to play at Yale or in the Ivy League or one of these top programs in the country. But I remember, high school lacrosse is much different than college lacrosse for a lot of different reasons. And I'm wondering about, you played at a high level in high school, obviously. You played in the MIAA. You had great coaching your whole life. You've always loved the sport, like myself. But maybe what surprised you, or what was it like transitioning to the college level when it's a much different ball game?
Yeah, for me, it was a little bit different because, I graduated during COVID, and the Ivy League was the only league that didn't play that year. So I had like a 2-year gap to like really slow it down and like really, find my feet in college lacrosse, which for me was, it ended up being very easy in my opinion. We met as a team over Zoom every week during that year that we didn't play. So I was like a part of a college lacrosse team, but I wasn't playing college lacrosse yet. So it's kind of weird in that sense. I wanted to be ready if we were going to play. So I watched film, once a week with our defensive coordinator that COVID year. So like, I knew the scheme and I knew the defense before I even stepped foot on campus. So then I start playing and I'm like, oh, like I watched that 100 times. So I know I need to be there. So it was pretty like easy, I think. It was definitely faster. Guys are a lot stronger. And then I think you think about, you'll play in the MIAA, right? And you'll have the best player at McDonough is going to Duke, and then, they got a kid going to Penn State, whatever. And then like a kid a little bit lower on the depth chart going to, I don't know, like maybe he's not even playing lacrosse. When you're playing in college, every kid you're playing against was that top player.
Yeah.
So like the level of play just rises significantly, obviously. And it's natural, like, you're practicing with all of those kids who are the best players on their team. So you just get better practicing.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty cool. And in high school, you might not really think, you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to go play in college. I'm going to, get better at lacrosse. I don't think you can really wrap your head around like how much more room for improvement that you really have, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. And the other thing I think I'd add is, I didn't have a problem with this because I always loved lacrosse. My dad played. I had a stick in my crib, basically. Played probably like you your whole life. But I really think it's so important that you love the sport at a really deep level if you want to play in college, because it's really all consuming. I mean, you just told me about how after the last day of the season last spring, it started again. The summer you got to work out, you got to train, you got to keep lifting. The fall you've got this whole program in the fall. Winter break you're working out at 8 in the morning every day. It's every day, and there are only 13, 14 games on the schedule. It's pretty wild. You've got to love the process.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think like, you gotta. There's guys I think that I've seen struggle, with, maybe playing all 4 years. Like some guys quit. It's hard, and I think for me and for a lot of my friends who love it, it's just all rooted in like how much do you like being here. It's kind of not differentiating like the grind, because I think there's a lot of people who love the grind. I love grinding because I know what the end result is and the end goal is. But there's like nothing that makes me happier than just being on a field in a game. Mm-hmm. It is the best feeling. I don't know. I mean, the feeling too. There's really nothing that beats it, and it's hard to describe. But I can think of some games where I'm just like, this is the most fun I've ever had.
Yeah, and it's totally worth all the other days of the year.
I'll come off the field. I think it was the Cornell game my freshman year in the Ivy League tournament. We were playing them at Brown in semifinals, and I just come off the field, just like laughing. I was like, I'm having so much fun right now. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely a special feeling.
So how do you balance? For me, like there were certainly times in college lacrosse where I was thinking to myself, in the middle of the week, it's cold out, you're standing there watching practice, or you're stretching for the second time that day, or you're getting ready to lift another set of something. You're thinking to yourself, what else could I be doing right now? And I think the balance component is interesting to talk about. So you've got other things that you're interested in. You've got a social life. How do you think about like balance in college while playing this pretty much all-consuming sport?
Yeah, it's hard. I think like even with the fact that there's classes that I can't take because we have practice. Mm-hmm. So like there's a class I've been going back and forth with Mr. Hastings about since I've gotten to Yale. It's a class on Ulysses. I'll never be able to take that class because it's at 4:00. Yeah. We practice at 4:00 or lift at 4:00 every single day. So I think that's part of it, right? Like I'm missing out on some opportunities because I have practice, I have lift. We joke around a lot on days where, we might have an off day. We literally will have no lacrosse stuff, which is once in a blue moon. But we were like, what do we do? Like we'll be in the library. We're like, wow, like we call them NARPs. Non-athletic regular person. Like this is what NARP life is like. And you're like, I don't have anything to do tonight. I already did all my homework. So it just like unlocks so much time to do other things. And talking to friends who don't play sports, like they have a completely different perspective on New Haven and like the surrounding area of activities and things to do around that I'm never gonna have the time to do.
Yeah. Sometimes I think about what it would be like if I didn't play lacrosse in college. And I don't know if I would have done as well academically because lacrosse just gave me such a regimented schedule. Like I go to practice for 5 hours or however long it takes, you know, for stretching and film and whatnot and lifting. Then you have to do your homework when you get back or there's no other choice. You know, you've got to get right on it. And I think if, if I didn't have lacrosse to set that schedule for me, I don't know, we'd be doing trips. I'd be doing different things. I don't know what I've been doing, but I would be less disciplined probably than I would have been playing a sport.
Yeah, definitely. I think like the, you know, balancing academics is one of the big things, right? Where you'll have class all day. And I think one of the funny things is like when I'm done class, that triggers in my head, oh, lacrosse starts now.
Yeah, your day starts.
My day starts, exactly. But for other people, you know, it's, oh, I'm done class, like, you know, I'm done the day.
Nap time.
Like, yeah, no, not for us, you know. So we'll finish class, go to practice, or go to lift, then go to practice. Then we're done around 7 or 8. I'm dog tired. You know, I would love to go in my bed, go to sleep, watch TV, play Xbox, whatever it is. But, like, you know, I've got a problem set due tomorrow that I have to finish. So I'll be in the library till 10:30, 11. Go to bed, do it all again the next day.
Yeah, it's a full-time job.
Yeah.
What's been the most interesting class that you've taken so far, or a class that you've taken recently that you've liked? History, otherwise?
Yeah. There's been a lot. I would say so 2 that I took this past semester. One of them was called Egypt of the Pharaohs. So I originally kind of, and I currently still am, I guess, you choose your major, you choose a specific track. Mine's European. I think I might sort of pivot that to like pre-industrial ancient. I've taken a lot of classes and I've loved like ancient Greek history. Like doing some of that stuff this next semester, ancient Roman history. But this was my first like kind of Egyptian class, and I thought that it was so cool to just like, it's a completely different culture than what we're used to. But there's so many like key tenets of that culture that like permeate throughout our society today, and I just thought it was so awesome. And just the fact that, you know, there's still bits and pieces of the history that we have no idea about. Like imagine if I told you, you know, from 1800 to now we have no idea what's going on. And how can we like think that we understand somebody's society? Like if we didn't have those years from 1800 to now, we would have no idea what, you know, our society is like.
Yeah, and we think we're so advanced with our phones and our cameras and computers, but we don't know. We couldn't rebuild the pyramids, and we don't know how they did them.
No, and I mean we would sometimes like poke our professor about, you know, conspiracy theories on the pyramids. She was an archaeologist. Like she's been to Giza. She's worked on the pyramid. She's like, it's not a conspiracy theory. I sometimes
So aliens didn't build them.
No, exactly. They weren't like an energy portal for the entire world. Yeah, and we're like, well, there was pyramids found in Antarctica. You know, what do you have to say about that? And she's like, we're done with this conversation.
That's funny. And it took a lot of slaves to build the pyramids, I believe, right?
Yeah, well, so they would have, the pharaoh would have like an entire workforce of, you know, a civilization building the pyramids.
Yeah.
So the Great Pyramid of Giza, Khufu, in the, you know, Old Kingdom just had, you know, masses and masses of people whose sole responsibility in their life was to build the pyramid.
But still, I mean, I would ask this professor, how did they lift these heavy, like what technology did they have to lift these heavy blocks to?
Yeah. Well, so like one of the big things is like, the rocks and the granite is cut so straight, or I guess limestone is cut so straight. And I guess they had, I probably should remember this. It's like, you know, escaped my mind in the last couple weeks, but they would like kind of like sand it down and sand down the corners with like a wet, you know, I guess saw or something of some sort. But even then, it's like, you know, these are massive pieces of limestone. How do you get it up? I think they talked a little bit about like dolly systems, like, but even then, it's hard to wrap your mind around.
Right. It's interesting. So that a lecture class, or was that
That was a lecture, yep. And then I took another semester, seminar this past semester on the origins of World War II with a very famous professor, Paul Kennedy, famous British historian. And I thought that was really cool just because, you know, it's way less structured than, you know, some of these more, I don't want to say modern classes, but, you know, our professor was, he's been there for a long time, like since the 70s or 80s, I think. So it was very, you know, conversational based. He'd come in, one student would have a, you know, a presentation on the readings for the night before or for the week before. You only meet once a week in a seminar. But just like, I took the class, honestly. It's like, oh, World War II. Like, that's the only word that I saw. I was like, World War II, awesome. We didn't talk about World War II, like the actual war itself once. It's all about the interwar period from, you know, 1931 to 41. I think we ended at Pearl Harbor. So I thought it was really cool just like seeing the dynamics at play there. And one of the cool things that we did was we're like talking about all of these conflicts and all of these events before World War II starts. And then, you know, we're bringing it back to the present and contextualizing it in, you know, what is the invasion of Ukraine and what are the implications of, you know, the Hamas-Israeli conflict right now. You know, how can some of these like be drawn, how can similarities between some of these events be drawn to some of the events that happened that, you know, ultimately led to the outbreak of war in World War II?
Yeah, and how do we study history and learn from history? And that's, I told you I'm teaching this U.S. history course, and I have to a lot of times do what you did in this college class, bring in current events so that the students can draw lines. And not everyone is really interested in history like us. You know, like you've got to see the thread of why this matters today, which I think is the challenge for professors and teachers to do.
Definitely, yeah. And he did a great job, and I think Yale as a whole does a really good job of kind of bringing that back to the present. And, you know, how can our students be, you know, the people that are going to be involved in policy and creating, you know, change for these pressing subjects and topics, which I think is pretty cool.
They do a good job with the hosting the Model UN, which I'm actually going to be going up to New Haven next weekend again with the 30 Model UN boys from Gilman. So I'm excited for that. They do their thing, they handle it, and Yale does a great job running it. But it's cool just to hang out in New Haven. Yeah,
get some pizza.
Get some pizza. Sally's?
Pepe's. Yeah, I'm a Pepe's guy.
Okay. How about like breakfast places? We went to that one place last year. That was pretty good.
We did. There's a new place kind of right. It's called The Place to Be. It's kind of like, I don't know, like a more happening Miss Shirley's kind of. Honestly, probably wouldn't go there. Mason B is good. Actually, I'll tell you where to go. It's called Patricia's. It's like this tiny little, you know, kind of like a diner run by this Greek woman and her husband. Just like a small breakfast place, you know, pancakes, sausage, bacon.
Perfect.
All cash. It's awesome. We're there probably there twice a week.
Yeah, I mean, I love walking around that town. Great art museums right on campus. I think there's a lot to do. So I drop the boys off at their Model UN and I check in on them, but I don't think I need to be there for the whole day. So I'm excited to explore a little bit again.
Yeah, for sure.
I know you guys have to take transportation to practice every day, right?
Yeah. So our facility is, I'd say, 7 to 10 minutes away. So there is a bus, like a shuttle that takes everybody over, because it's not only ours. You know, there's women's lacrosse, women's soccer, men's soccer, whose locker room is, you know, within our facility, the Sci Center. But like the football team is over there, track and field's over there. So there's a ton of people. So they're getting shuttled back and forth. A lot of us have cars. So I have my car and I'll just, you know, drive over whenever, which is definitely very nice to kind of be on my own time and not have to plan my day around the shuttles, because the worst thing that you can do is miss practice or miss lift.
They just tell you to go home.
Yeah. Just if you're there late, they're just going to send you home. So not having to worry about that is nice. And, you know,
have you ever been late to a practice or something?
No.
It's impressive. I mean, I lived by myself. I didn't live with lacrosse guys. I lived with hockey guys, and I'm shocked that I was never for these early sessions. And
yeah, we'll have someone send a text. You know, like we're all waking up at we got to be there. So we had a like an indoor, practice kind of thing. I think it was at 8 a.m. this past semester for the last like 3 weeks. Like we'd all check in. Our house is a 2-minute walk from the gym where we had to be. So we were like, all right, we'll check in at 7:30. And then everybody will like the text, like, all right, everybody's up. But like if you sleep in, people are going to be banging on your door at 7:33. Like,
Oh, that's good. They'll wake you up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I remember those texts up ?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm ready to go. Tell me about the new facility, the Joe Tsai setup, and that's there, right? You're using that.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like we couldn't be more thankful for him. He's awesome for us, constantly giving to us, which is, amazing. And we really couldn't, ask for more.
He loves lacrosse.
He loves it. Yeah. He played at Lawrenceville, played at Yale, and obviously, super involved in the PLL now. I think he owns either the San Diego Seals, I think, in the NLL. Yeah, loves it. His kids play. So yeah, over COVID, the plans had been in. I remember it's kind of going back on what I said earlier, but on my official visit, or my original visit to Yale, Coach Shay, he shows me the national championship ring, and then he's like, check out these plans for our new facility, like state-of-the-art, $2 million. I'm like, an 18-year-old kid flipping through like the blueprint. I'm like, This is pretty cool.
You're sold.
I didn't think that I would have it for all 4 years. I thought they'd still be building it, but it was done by the time I got there freshman year. So I guess I took like a gap year kind of, and it was done, and it's awesome. Like state of the art, everything. We've got
hot tub, cold tub,
underwater treadmill. We've got a DEXA machine. Got an X-ray in there. Like anything that you possibly could think of, it's definitely in there.
Is a weight room in there, or it is?
Weight room, probably 20 racks, full turf.
Wow. And it's right by the field, right?
Yeah, there's like the field, all the racks, and then the back window, it's overlooking the field.
Wow. So it's like Homewood Field.
Yeah, exactly.
Same.
Yeah, same thing.
Can't imagine. I feel like you almost need one of these facilities now to compete. You look at Homewood Field, and I forget what that one's called. You look at Yale. I'm sure the Big Ten. I'm sure like Michigan's has
got
it.
A really nice one. Yeah, it's definitely a device that is now a recruiting device. Coach Shay originally was like, I don't want a kid to come here just because we've got nice facilities.
Yeah.
I think with that being said, he's kind of understanding, like, you kind of got to show the kids what they want to some extent. So he's starting to, tour them through there a lot more than he used to. He was like, earlier, I remember our freshman, sophomore year, he's like, if it was up to me, like, they're not going there. Like, I'm not even going to take them. Like, they'll see that when they come here. But, I think he understands it. Like, you got to evolve a little bit. And so now that's definitely like one of the major selling points, and it's awesome. Like literally anything that you could possibly want is there.
So Jack, let's hear about your book, Make Your Bed.
Yeah.
Why this one?
Yeah, so we actually just did like the team kind of tries to find a way for us to stay connected over break, and a couple of the upperclassmen defensively were like, what if we, kind of picked a book, right, that we all read. We check in once a week, talk about what we read, having it, be impactful for us for some way once we get out into the field. So we ended up choosing 3 books. Each group could choose one of the 3, and my group went with Make Your Bed. So I actually think this was summer reading when I was at Gilman. Mm-hmm. I read it. I'll say that. But, reread it this past 3 weeks, and I think, like, you touched on it earlier, the first chapter of, make your bed because, you can check something off the first day, but I like it because, it's like, if you have the worst possible day ever, everything goes wrong, horrible practice, you bomb an exam, you lose a big game, whatever. If you go home and, walk into your room and see your bed made, that has probably got to be the best feeling of all time, right? Where you're like, everything was horrible, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been if I didn't make my bed. Mm-hmm. And I think that's pretty powerful. And I'm on a, I guess, 3-week making my bed streak.
There you go.
I think the first morning I was like, all right, I'm going to time myself. How long does it take me to make my bed? So I'm like, all right, it takes me 4 minutes. I'll wake up 4 minutes earlier so I can do all that. But I like it. It's definitely like there are times where I'll forget to. I'll walk downstairs to start making a cup of coffee, and then I'll sprint back upstairs, like just make my bed real quick. I think there's a lot of other, great stuff in here. I like the there's a chapter about, about the circus. I don't know, have you read it?
I have, but I forget this one.
So they would go through their drills all day. I'll preface it a little bit. The book is about Admiral William McRaven, right, who was a Navy SEAL. He spent some time in San Diego training, and this is like his stories of the little stories that he learned while training to be a Navy SEAL that he took with him for the rest of his life. And these 10 little things, can make you change the world. It kind of stemmed from a speech that he gave to the graduating class of UT Austin, I think 2014. So one of them is like, in life, you're gonna be in the circus. So the circus was, they had their drills, and if you not even their drills, uniform check and all that good stuff. And if you didn't meet the standard of the instructors, they'd say, Jake, you're in the circus today. So once you're done everything, grueling day, every single day, grueling day. Once you're done, if you're in the circus, you got 2 more hours of calisthenics. So the thing with that was, it's like, all right, I'm, super tired after a, long day of training, early morning swims, long beach runs. And then when you're done, if you're on the circus list, you got 2 more hours of calisthenics. So you're going to be extra tired the next day. Your standards are probably going to drop a little bit. So he talks about spiraling into this thing where it's like, I'm in the circus one day, I'm tired the next day, my details are going to slip, I'm going to be in the circus the next day. Mm-hmm. So constantly in the circus. But then he talks about how if you're doing all this extra training, all these extra calisthenics every single day, over time, slowly you're going to become stronger, you're going to become faster. And then he tells that it was one of the last tests, an open ocean swim. And him and his swimming partner are swimming, and they don't see anybody around them. They finish up on the beach. Like, they see the instructor's boots, look up. He's like, you two are the first ones on the beach. They look back, and there's nobody in sight. So all those extra hours spent in the circus, which originally was a form of punishment, is the reason why they, finished first in their class in this swim and got stronger and, mentally tougher, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really good. A lot of details. And yeah, I think, playing college lacrosse, it's definitely different from the military in a lot of ways. I've never been in the military. My sister and her husband are, and, they tell me stories. But there is a lot of carryover, I think, to a program like Yale or Harvard or any of these college lacrosse programs, because the discipline that it takes to be successful in a sport on a team, I mean, it goes down to every little detail. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's taking a picture of your food every day. We had a fat test. Yep. So you come in after winter break and they pinch you and they say, Jake, sorry, buddy, you're Wednesday mornings. You've got basically the circus.
Yeah.
So a lot of that stuff carries over, and I think it's just good for life. I think this book, Make Your Bed, even now, I'm not playing a college sport right now, but if I wake up in the morning, I get my workout in, I feel like I have the best day ever, so it's good stuff.
Yeah, I think it's cool too, kind of, you mentioning some of the crossover. The reason why I wanted to go to Yale in the first place was, do you remember Michael Quinn?
Yeah.
So he was, All-American defenseman. I thought I played a little bit like him, so I was like, this guy, I saw him, play against Rambo, I think, one year when they played Maryland. I was like, this guy's a stud. I want to, go down and meet this guy. So I go to a game against Princeton, meet him after the game. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sold. I was probably in 7th grade. Flash forward, end up going to Yale, whatever. I got to know him relatively well. He was a banker for a couple years after graduating. Then he drops everything. He's like, I want to be a Green Beret. So this past year, he, quit his job as an investment banker in LA, joins the training for the Green Berets, and then this past October finished first in his class.
Wow.
Coach Shay tells us that, me and another guy, and he's like, yeah, and Quinny's saying that, you know, without Yale Lacrosse, like, he wouldn't have been able to do it. And I'm like, dude, like, you're going to be in the Army and you're saying that, like, some, you know, joke of a lacrosse program is what got you there. But he was pretty, you know, adamant about it. And I thought it was pretty cool how, like,
yeah,
you know, some of the stuff that we do is getting a guy through, you know, some of the hardest military training in the world, which is pretty powerful.
You think you might want to be in the military someday, or?
I think everybody watches Band of Brothers and they're like, you know, I'm joining tomorrow.
Right.
I don't want to say yes and be on the record for it. I think it'd be awesome.
Yeah.
You know, I think that I have the personality to do it.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't know if I'll ever, you know, actually, you know, follow up on my word. But
all right, Stuz. Well, thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
It's been fun.
Super fun. Good to be back. Glad I've got on. My mom's probably pretty happy.
Shout out to your mom, honestly, because she, every time she's driving back from the Adirondack, she texts me, hey, like, great episodes, keep them coming. So it's great to finally have you on.
Yeah.
So appreciate your time. Good luck this season.
Thanks so much,
we'll be watching here at Gilman.
Yeah, you too as well. I hope you guys, you know, get back to the old winning ways.
Yes, sir. And Cesare, thank you very much.